Welcome to 10 Mobile Apps We Love from NatSpec Tech Ability. This webinar has come from a series of solutions to different assessments that I've carried out and other recommendations that I've had from other people within the field. So they've all come from real student needs. There'll be a bit of a mix here. So even if every app isn't useful for you, hopefully there will be something that you find useful at some point. So we're going to be looking at giving solutions to barriers through these apps. We're going to be providing a range of different apps that will be useful to you. We're not going to be covering inbuilt accessibility options today, but it is worth bearing those in mind because you can read anything on the screen with iOS and Android devices. So if during today you think, my learner couldn't use that because it's got text on the screen, just think about whether you can adapt the phone with the inbuilt settings. You can, of course, adapt phones using switches. You can link them to communicators, and you can change visual options as well. So it's just something to be aware of. And if you want to ask us for more information on that, then feel free. If there's enough demand, I'd imagine we'd do another webinar. Keep your learners and their data safe. I'm sure you've had a good overview of GDPR and the importance of that. So just bear that in mind. And let us know how you get on as well. We've got Twitter at TechAbility1, so that's at tech_ability1. So feel free to just let us know how you're getting on with any of the apps, good or bad. And yeah, we'll get stuck into some of the ones we're going to be using today. So first up is Microsoft Translator. So this has been developed by Microsoft predominantly as a translator app, but it has some other advantages as well. If you want to join the conversation, if you've got a QR code reader on your phone, then you can use the QR code there. Or if you've got the app on your phone, then you can join the conversation using that short code there, XKWIG. And don't worry if you don't have time for that now. I will be sharing the handout with you all, so you can go back through this. And this webinar will also be available on the YouTube channel, and I can show you that at the end how to find that. So it works with different languages and abilities. It's available on Android, iOS. There's a Microsoft PowerPoint plugin, which is quite useful. You can start automatically with generated subtitles, and it's also web-based as well. So someone doesn't have to have previously installed the software. They can just load it straight up on their browser. It has one input language and multiple output languages for the conversations, which is quite useful if you're working with learners with different languages. You can save a transcript at the end of the conversation, which is quite useful to make the sessions that you're doing more accessible, and especially with people who may have missed the session. You don't need to be in the same location. So I've actually got this one running right now, and you should be able to join the conversation too. Most features require connectivity, especially the conversations, but you can download the voices, the languages offline. So why is this good for SEND? The added advantage that we have is that we can use this with learners. Here we go. We can use this with learners so they can read at the same time as I'm talking. So this is very helpful for learners who have various different kind of print impairments, and is useful to see what people are saying. Sometimes it makes hilarious mistakes, but that's all fine. At least it gives you an idea of what's going on.
So the next one is quite a useful app for reading text. It's available on iOS and Android. It can read text live, so you hold your phone up and you can read it as if you're taking a picture, but it will read the text out. Has a very simple interface. It's designed for those with visual impairments, but it's useful for others. It has some different other tools in it. It can describe a scene, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. It can detect colors, it can scan barcodes. There's a free trial, so you can use this straight away. The monthly subscription is $1.99, and the more popular one is the annual subscription, which is $19.99. If you've got iOS, it might be worth considering Microsoft Seeing AI. It's a similar app and is completely free. A bit of a strange one with Microsoft. They're developing an app for what is an Apple product, but I think it's to do with the hardware that's on the Apple iPhones. Okay, so the next one is one that everyone can get involved in, even though it's an app for people with visual impairments. You can sign up to this app either as a user or as a helper. So I'm signed up as a helper, and there are lots of helpers, which is, I think, is a very wonderful thing. And what will happen is if you have something that you want to get some visual feedback on, then you can hold up the camera to it and ask a question. You're then connected with the Be My Eyes app through to a helper who can answer the question. The example in the picture that we've got here is someone asking which one's tomatoes, and it's the one on the right. The helper's very kindly pointed that out. And then the other one, has the milk expired? No, you have 2 more days. Useful because you don't want to be eating your milk. So that's something that anyone can get involved in as a helper, if nothing else. And the best thing about it is that it's free again, and it's available on Android and iOS. So well worth a download and well worth a play. Okay, so Sleep Town. This is one that came from learners who were maybe not managing their time very well with their sleeping patterns, and especially a learner who'd become very dependent on their mobile phone, which a lot of these apps, that can be the downside, is that you can be helping learners, and unfortunately they will become, they'll have a certain level of addiction to the app. So this is a kind of gamification. So it's turning your sleep patterns into a game. So when you set your sleep time and you set up your wake up time, as long as you stick to those, at least kind of near enough, then you will have a building built in your town. And over time, you can build up a larger and larger town. It's free. There are some premium options if you want to kind of join your friends together and things like that. And the goals of going to bed and going to sleep are customizable, so it might be different on the weekend as to weekdays. It's pretty fun. I tried it for a week. Didn't do very well, but it is useful. And also, if you're supporting learners, it's a good way of looking back and kind of seeing how their sleep has been. The way that it works so that they don't pick up their phone is the moment that they go off that screen from their phone, then the building is cancelled and they don't get to build their buildings. So they can go on their phone and they can do different things. It doesn't lock it, which might be a safety issue as well. You don't really want learners to lock it if that's their way of contacting, help. And it also encourages independence with them managing it themselves. So yeah, handy little app there. So the next one is to do with mental health, really. Mental health is a very big issue, and I know that lots of colleges have learners with these kind of needs. So Dalio is an example of a mood tracker. It's available on Android and iOS, has a really simple user interface, which is what's made it stand out to me over some of the other ones. If you have learners who might get switched off by text or might not be able to add text, then you can see there the faces right the way from rad to awful are pretty clear what they mean. And on the other side, you can see what have you been up to. There are icons alongside with the words, so you can very easily categorize what you've been doing and how you've been feeling while you've been there. You can add extra text to explain certain issues that have happened. So it really can be used by a wide range of learners, from those that can tap a few icons to those who can write more. And of course, you can use your phone to write with your voice as well, as covered in another webinar. So you could combine those two things together quite powerfully. It has a detailed output, which I'll show you in a second as well. So if you're working with someone and you're their kind of mental health support, then it's really good, especially if you only have 1 or 2 meetings with them ever so often, then it's really good to look back on what they've been doing. It can be learner-led, or it can have that support with the staffing. If you need more than tracking, as in this is used to track your mental health. If you need something more along the lines of providing support and guidance with mental health, and certainly learners with autism as well, then I'd consider Brain in Hand. We've got another webinar for that on our channel as well. There's another similar app, which is a more simple interface, but maybe not as clear with the symbols, and that's called Pixel. So the output of Dalio, these are some of the ways that you can see how someone's been doing. So you can see how many times they carried out a certain activity, how their mood has been. You can have a look at the monthly chart, and you can see what their kind of best days were and what they were doing during those best days. So it's a really useful diagnostic tool, whether that's for the learner themselves or for the people working with that learner. Okay, next one, bit of organization. Todoist, it's an organizational tool. It's available on all platforms and it syncs between them. So I'm able to set my tasks and break them down into different goals. And I'm able to do that on my computer, but then it's also available on my mobile phone, which is pretty useful. Breaking down these goals into smaller tasks is known as chunking. And it's a very good way of making these quite simple. It isn't very image based, which is a downside, but it does have a number of icons which are really useful. It can be done remotely and by teams as well. So if I am working with a learner, I can set them tasks, I can set them goals, or I can set an entire team or a group some projects. And the people in that group might be staff, it might be learners, it might be a mix of them. So if I'm thinking that I'm someone delivering a session with learners who are learning how to cook, and maybe they've got some staff support with them, then I can set them that goal to cook a flan, and then I can break it down into the different levels of cooking a flan. I have no idea how to cook a flan, so that would have to be set by someone else, I think. It's a really handy app, and it's free again, which is useful, with some good color options and a good layout. Artur is one of the favorite ones that we've been using recently, and it's a note-taking app that can save all your conversations in one place. It captures audio, it transcribes the text automatically. So if I do some right now, it'll just take a minute or so, and then it'll transcribe it into the text, so I can use that and put it elsewhere. The other thing I really like is you can search through tags. So you can probably see on the right hand side the Artur overview. It's tagged keywords that have come from that text. So then I can search back and find keywords through various meetings or work that I've done before. The other good thing is that you can attach it to calendar events. So if you have a learner that you're organising with a calendar, you can also have the text notes from that meeting. As with quite a few of these apps, it's actually a good app for you to use yourself. So you can actually start this yourself and use it as a productivity tool. And then as you become more comfortable, introduce it to learners. Has 600 minutes a month free, which is more than most people would use. I think it would only be if you're a really avid user that you would need more than that. And the usual sound quality rules apply. So you're looking at cutting out background noise, you're looking at the quality of the microphone, and make sure that the learner isn't touching the microphone at the time of talking, or it can become very unclear. Okay. So the next one is Money Manager. This has been quite a popular app for a number of different people trying to encourage their learners to get an idea of how they're spending their money. It can be done together with the staff members again, or it can be done on an individual basis. It's a good way of tracking spending in different categories, and you can make customizable categories as well. So you might want it really simple, or you might want it a little bit more complicated, depending on what you're trying to show. It has clear categories. There's good symbol and color options to make them coordinated. The visual charts at the end are very useful, and it's available on Android and iOS. If you think back to the other app that we were showing on mental health, it's a similar type of setup as well. So if you've got a learner using one, it's quite easy to show them the other. It's simply a matter of just typing in the number that you're, the amount that you've spent, and then choosing a category. And you can always add extra notes if you want. So that's been quite popular and handy. Now, this one is really simple, but actually it's also been very popular. It's a talking clock. It's got very clear visuals. If you need a larger clock, you can just turn your phone to the landscape mode. So just turning it on its side and it will adjust. The way that it talks is it's 11:47, so it's quite clear. It can change to AM or PM or 24-hour based on the phone setting itself. So it isn't settings within the app. If you need to change it between AM and PM and 24-hour, you need to go into settings within your device. You can combine this with a talking timetable as well. We've done that with a learner where we sent them a audio timetable on WhatsApp so they could see what they were doing any particular day. And that, with the telling the time, meant that they could be completely independent. They couldn't read text, but they could hear audio that gave them a very clear idea of what they were doing. You can also use Messenger or Google Keep, so good mainstream options there for a talking timetable. With iOS, I had a look into this and there wasn't really a clear alternative, but what I did manage to do was use the inbuilt clock with read aloud. So that's an inbuilt accessibility feature in iOS, and I have it set up so that when I drag with my two fingers from the top of the screen down, then it reads out what's on the screen. So with that, as long as I'm in the clock, then it will read out the clock. It isn't quite as clear as this one though. So on Android, I find this one a better app. Now, My Mind is a mind mapping application, and this is a very useful tool for learners who are either working on a project, who need to understand how something is structured, and can even be used for essay planning as well, when you're starting to look at different titles and breaking down into concepts. It's quite useful for learners. It's very clear and functional. You can export the file as a PDF, JPEG, text, and more. It's available for both Android and iOS. You can see the layout on the right-hand side. When I select one of the one of the elements, then it gives me a lot of details and a lot of things that I can do with it. But actually, if I didn't want to do that, if I just wanted to type, then I could avoid all that complexity. So it has good options for whatever level of student you're working with who can use mind mapping. Mindly is another good app as well. It's more symbol based and has better text options maybe, but isn't so good if you need pictures. So I thought My Mind was probably the more easily accessible out of the two. The next app is something that was introduced to me when I was working with people with hearing impairments, and it's a sign language finder. The videos are signed for you. There are multiple languages. It's being constantly updated. It's available on iOS, Android, and desktop as well. It has different speed options and favorites as well. So I've actually opened up the sign language reader so we can have a look at it. So this is the one on the internet, but obviously you can do a similar kind of thing with the app. So if I want to, I can go to search individual words here, or if I click along the top, I can go for a sentence. So I think a good sentence to start might be, how are you? So if I search for that, it's got two different options. It's saying, how are you, or how are you feeling? So we'll just say, how are you? And there we go. And it might be a bit jerky on your screen as we're going over a webinar, but on mine it's pretty smooth, and it's someone signing, how are you? I can also click on the video and it will give me a nice clear English as well. There's different language options there, so quite a helpful app. The next one is Where is Public Toilet, and a very useful app in the right kind of circumstances. It's worldwide, so you can use this anywhere. It's reliant on the community to update it, so you are relying on other people. But the mode is pretty clear. It uses GPS to find the nearest public toilet to you. It gives the accessibility details on there, so whether you're using hoist or what access options you need to get into the building. So it does cover quite a lot of the things that are quite useful to know when you're accessing the public toilet. I couldn't see the same version on iOS, but the iOS version that seems to be the best is Flush. I only had a quick go at it, but it seemed okay. I'd be interested if anyone else wants to try Flush and just lets me know how you're getting on. It's quite a useful app to have in lots of different circumstances. So that was actually 11 apps. I lied, but hopefully it's given you a good overview of some of the things that you can do with different technology. Sorry about the sound quality earlier on. I'm not sure quite what happened there. I'll just show you where the YouTube channel is. We'll have this one recorded and uploaded. So it's on Techability. So if I go to Techability, here we go. And along the top, we've got the webinars here. So this will give you the list of the upcoming webinars that we have. So the next one's 4th of March at 1 o'clock, and that's Social Stories. Phil McIntyre and Carrie Sant will be going through some features in BoardMaker, Story Creator, Pictello, and low-cost versions to create visual resources for learners. We've got AAC and GDPR, and then medical device regulations and technology for travel training after that. And at the bottom of this list as well, you've got the YouTube channel. So here you can see all of our past webinars, ones that we mentioned today, There's some general kind of tips on mobile technology there that might be quite useful. Using your voice webinar, links with Artur and other ones that we've discussed today. There are features on with Brain in Hand as well that we mentioned. There we go, at number 3. Those are all quite useful. Great, so if there's any questions, I'll take them now. If there's anything that you want to ask about the apps, then feel free to do so either now or on Twitter. You can tweet us at tech_ability1. Feel free to drop us an email or call. And if you've enjoyed this app, then let us know. If there's anything that you think that we've missed, or that there are some kind of screaming needs that you have for different apps, then let us know and we'll see what we can do to help. Okay, thank you very much.